I woke in the hospital to the smell of antiseptic and the metallic tang of blood I could still taste. My head throbbed with every heartbeat, a vicious reminder of Marcus's fist connecting with my temple 4 hours earlier. The fight had been about nothing, everything, the usual accusations. Cold dinner. A smile at the grocery store clerk he decided meant something. His voice escalating, mine disappearing, Zuri's footsteps retreating to her bedroom like she'd learned to do. Then his hands. I tried to lift my head and the room spun violently, nausea clawing up my throat. The nurse had said grade 2 concussion, possibly worse. 3 broken ribs. Bruised kidney. Rest, observation, follow-up care I'd never be able to afford. I tried to sign myself out against medical advice because the bill was already past $400 and every minute in this bed meant more debt I couldn't pay, more reasons for Marcus to rage about how I was bleeding him dry. My phone sat on the sterile white bedside table, screen shattered into a spiderweb of cracks from when Marcus had thrown it against our kitchen wall. But it still worked, the one mercy in a night without any. I reached for it with trembling fingers, every movement sending lightning through my damaged ribs. 3:17 a.m. My shift at the Moretti estate started at 6 o'clock, and I couldn't miss it. Not today. Not ever. 3 years I'd worked for Enzo Moretti. 3 years of steady paychecks that kept me and Zuri in our cramped apartment on the south side, kept the lights on, kept food in the cabinets, kept us surviving. Missing a shift without notice meant dismissal. I knew the rules. Mr. Moretti didn't tolerate unreliability, and I couldn't afford to test his patience. I dialed home with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. The phone rang once, twice, 6 times before going to voicemail. Panic cut through the morphine haze, cold and sharp as a blade. I tried again. Nothing. Where was Zuri? Why wasn't she answering? Mrs. Vance. A different nurse appeared in the doorway, younger than the first, clipboard in hand, exhaustion evident in the set of her shoulders. You really need to stay for observation. The doctor wants to. My daughter. My voice came out rough, damaged, barely recognizable. Where's my daughter? The nurse consulted her clipboard, frowning. She left about 2 hours ago. Said she was going home to get you some clothes and personal items. She mentioned a neighbor who'd be helping her. Ice flooded my veins, worse than any pain Marcus had inflicted. She left. You let a 13-year-old girl leave the hospital alone at 1 in the morning. She said your neighbor Mrs. Patterson was meeting her outside, the nurse said defensively. She seemed calm, responsible. She promised she'd be right back. Was I supposed to physically restrain her? Mrs. Patterson lived 3 doors down and worked nights at the diner. She wouldn't be home until 6. Zuri knew that. Which meant my daughter had lied to hospital staff to leave. Which meant she had a plan. Which meant... Oh God. The realization hit me like Marcus's fists all over again. She went to work for me. I was already ripping the 4 from my arm, ignoring the nurse's protests, ignoring the way the room tilted dangerously when I stood. My 13-year-old baby had gone to the Moretti estate at 3 a.m. to clean in my place, to save the job that kept us fed, to protect the fragile stability that was all we had left. Mrs. Vance, you can't leave. You have a serious concussion. Your injuries need. Move. I didn't recognize the authority in my voice. I need to find my daughter. The nurse stepped aside, still protesting medical advice and hospital policy, but I was already stumbling toward the elevator, one hand pressed against my screaming ribs, the other clutching my shattered phone like it might suddenly provide answers. I tried Zuri again as the elevator descended. Voicemail. I tried our apartment. Nothing. Then my brain caught up with my terror, and I realized with horrible, crystal clarity where she'd gone. Enzo Moretti's mansion sat in an exclusive neighborhood I could never afford to even drive through. All iron gates and manicured lawns and old money that didn't need to announce itself. I'd taken 2 buses to get there in the pre-dawn darkness, each pothole and sharp turn sending fresh agony through my damaged body. By the time I reached the service entrance I'd used for 3 years, I was crying from pain and fear in equal measure. But I was too late. The kitchen lights blazed through the windows, warm and accusatory. I could see movement inside. Multiple figures. My hand trembled as I reached for the door handle, terrified of what I'd find. My daughter caught cleaning by my employer, bruises visible on her thin arms where she tried to stop Marcus from beating me, questions I couldn't answer without admitting the truth I'd spent 9 months hiding. Enzo Moretti was a dangerous man. A mafia boss. Everyone who worked for him understood that without it ever being spoken. And my daughter was alone in his home at 3 a.m., probably with evidence of violence written across her skin. The door opened before I could touch it. Dante, Mr. Moretti's head of security, stood there in his usual dark suit, expression carefully neutral in that way that made my stomach drop. He'd driven me home after late shifts more times than I could count, always professional, always slightly terrifying in his stillness. Mrs. Vance. He didn't sound surprised to see me broken and bleeding on the doorstep. Mr. Moretti has been expecting you. If you are still listening and feel this story touching something inside you, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, to like and share this video so we can continue bringing heartfelt stories every day. And if it isn't too much to ask, would you tell me where you're watching from? Leave a comment below and let us know which corner of the world this story has reached. We treasure every word you share with us. The kitchen was exactly as I'd left it 3 days ago. Gleaming stainless steel, marble countertops that cost more than a year of my salary, crystal wine glasses lined up like soldiers waiting for inspection. Except now my 13-year-old daughter stood at the industrial sink, shoulders shaking with silent sobs as she scrubbed at a glass with hands that trembled visibly. Zuri. Her name came out broken. She spun around, eyes going wide with a mixture of relief and guilt that no child should have to feel. Mama, I'm sorry, I just thought. That's when he stepped out from the shadows near the doorway. Enzo Moretti moved like smoke, silent and deliberate, and I realized with a cold jolt that he'd been watching. Waiting. Those dark eyes swept over Zuri with an intensity that made me instinctively step forward, positioning myself between them even though my body screamed in protest. But he wasn't looking at me. He was staring at Zuri's arms where she'd pushed up her sleeves to wash dishes. At the bruises that circled her wrists like obscene bracelets. At the healing split on her lower lip. At the fingerprint marks visible on her shoulder where her collar had slipped. His expression went from confusion to something that made the air in the room feel dangerous. How long has this been happening? His voice was quiet. Controlled. Absolutely lethal underneath. It's complicated. I heard myself making excuses, the same ones I'd been making for months. We don't need. How long? The command in those 2 words cut through every defense I'd built. Zuri looked at me, asking permission with her eyes, and I couldn't do anything but nod. What was the point of lying now? 9 months, she whispered. Since Marcus moved in. Enzo crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and crouched down to Zuri's eye level, moving slowly like you would around a frightened animal. Did he put his hands on you? Zuri's chin trembled. Only when I got between him and Mama. Something shifted in Enzo's face, not visible on the surface, but I felt it like a drop in temperature. He stood, and for the first time really looked at me. At my swollen eye. At the way I held my ribs. At the defensive posture I couldn't hide even when I tried. "Dante," he said without taking his eyes off me. "Bring the car." Dr. Ricci arrived within the hour, a silver-haired man in his 60s who'd probably seen everything in his years patching up Enzo's world. But when he examined us, his hands gentle despite their clinical efficiency, I watched his jaw tighten with each discovery. Grade 2 concussion. 3 fractured ribs. Not broken but close enough. The kidney, he pressed carefully on my abdomen, and I couldn't stop the gasp. Severely bruised. "You're lucky it's not worse." His eyes met mine. "These defensive wounds on your forearms, Mrs. Vance. And this fracture in your wrist, maybe 6 months old? It healed incorrectly." He moved to Zuri next, and his quiet fury became something colder. "Malnutrition. When's the last time you ate properly, Piccola?" Zuri looked at her lap. Mama needed it more. The silence that followed was broken only by Enzo's sharp exhale from where he stood by the window, back rigid, hands clenched. The social worker came next, a black woman named Patricia who Enzo had somehow produced at 4 in the morning. She sat across from me in Enzo's study and waited, patient and knowing, until the words finally came. "I met Marcus at church 11 months ago." My voice sounded distant even to my own ears. He seemed kind, steady. After 7 years alone, after Jerome died, I thought. I stopped, swallowed. He isolated me slowly. My mother, my friends, my church community, said they were trying to break us up, that I needed to choose him. The violence started small, pushing. Hands around my throat that he called playful. Patricia's pen moved across her notepad, steady and sure. Then it was punching. Threats. He controlled all our money. And he'd say, my voice cracked, "Who's going to believe you? Black women always playing victim. They'll say you're just trying to get money from your rich white boss." I felt Enzo move behind my chair before I heard him. "May I?" he asked quietly, and when I nodded, his hand settled carefully on my shoulder. "Grounding, not trapping. He used your identity as a weapon," Enzo said, his voice carrying an edge that made me shiver. "I won't do that. But I will use every resource I have to make sure he never hurts you again." That night, in a bedroom 3 times the size of our entire apartment, furnished with things I'd only ever cleaned, I finally slept. And when I woke crying at dawn, it was from relief, not nightmares. The first 2 weeks passed in a haze of healing that felt almost surreal. Physical therapy 3 times a week for my ribs and wrist. Trauma therapy twice weekly with Dr. Martinez, who had kind eyes and didn't push when I couldn't find words. Enzo had enrolled me in online business management courses, insisted I wasn't working, and every time I tried to protest, he'd simply say, "Rest, Keisha," like it was the most natural thing in the world. I struggled with it. Accepting help felt like admitting defeat, like becoming exactly the charity case Marcus had always accused me of being. But Zuri was blooming. That's what finally broke through my resistance. Watching her laugh again. I found them in the kitchen one afternoon. Enzo, Nonna Rosa, and Zuri elbow deep in pasta dough. Flour dusted Enzo's dark hair like premature gray, and Zuri was actually giggling as Nonna Rosa scolded him in rapid Italian, gesturing dramatically with dough-covered hands. "No, no, Enzo. You fold, not squeeze. Like this." The old woman demonstrated, then turned to Zuri with exaggerated exasperation. "Bambina, you see what I must teach? Grown man, doesn't know pasta." "Mystery's not that bad, Nonna," Zuri defended, grinning, and I watched Enzo's face soften at the casual nickname, at my daughter's easy affection. It was the first time I saw him as something other than my employer or a dangerous man with blood on his hands. He was someone's grandson. Someone who valued family enough to take a scolding about pasta technique with good humor. That night, I found him in the garden reviewing documents by lamplight. Without thinking too much about it, I sat down across from him. "Can't sleep?" he asked, setting aside his papers. "Too quiet. I'm not used to feeling safe." We talked about loss. His parents killed in a car accident when he was 19, suddenly orphaned and thrust into his father's world. My Jerome, shot during a traffic stop 7 years ago, bleeding out in a parking lot while I was home making dinner. "I should have asked," Enzo said suddenly. "I noticed the changes. The long sleeves in summer. How you flinched. I respected your privacy, but I failed you. You're doing more now than anyone else did. My own mother said I was making a mistake bringing another man around. My church friends stopped calling when Marcus said Sundays were our time." Enzo's hand moved toward mine, stopped, waited for permission. When I nodded, his fingers closed around mine. Warm, steady, safe. "He sounds like a good man, your Jerome. He'd be proud of how you protected Zuri." Something shifted between us in that moment, fragile as new glass but real enough to make my heart stutter. Day 18 shattered our fragile peace with Marcus's voice at the gates, slurred with alcohol and rage. "Tell that rich white bastard to send out my woman and my kid." I was upstairs helping Zuri with algebra when Dante's voice came through the security system, calm but urgent. "Mr. Moretti, we have a situation at the front gate." My blood turned to ice. Zuri's pencil clattered to the floor. Through the window, I could see Marcus at the wrought iron gates, swaying but loud, pointing at the security cameras. "I know you can hear me, Keisha. You think you can just run? I'll call the police. Tell them about the kidnapping. About how this mobster is taking advantage of." Then Enzo appeared, walking down the driveway with the kind of controlled grace that made every instinct scream danger. He wore no jacket, just a white dress shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows, and somehow that made him look more lethal, not less. "Mrs. Vance and her daughter are here by choice." His voice carried, quiet but absolute. "You have 3 seconds to leave my property." "You think you're better than me?" Marcus lurched forward against the gates. "She's mine. Nobody wants a used-up black woman with baggage anyway except some white guilt charity case." Dante and another guard had him restrained before he finished the sentence, professional and efficient. Marcus struggled, but it was like watching a child fight adults. Enzo stepped closer to the gates, close enough that Marcus could see his face clearly. "You've made threats. You've shown up at my home. You've proven you're a danger to 2 people under my protection. If you come here again, you won't be leaving on your feet. Do you understand me?" Marcus was dragged away, still screaming threats, but I barely heard them. Because Zuri was gone. I found her in her closet, knees pulled to her chest, hands over her ears, hyperventilating the way she used to when Marcus would start yelling at home. Her eyes were squeezed shut, and she was making these small, broken sounds that no 13-year-old should know how to make. "Baby, I'm here." I crawled in beside her despite my ribs protesting. "He's gone. You're safe." But she couldn't stop shaking. And watching my daughter, my brave, smart daughter, reduced to this trembling child hiding in a closet, something fundamental broke inside me. I was done being afraid. Done letting Marcus control our lives from a distance. Done trying to handle this alone. If you are still listening and feel this story touching something inside you, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, to like and share this video so we can continue bringing heartfelt stories every day. And if it isn't too much to ask, would you tell me where you're watching from? Leave a comment below and let us know which corner of the world this story has reached. We treasure every word you share with us. I found him after midnight in his office, surveillance footage frozen on Marcus's twisted face at the gates. Enzo stood perfectly still, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand, and I could feel the controlled violence radiating off him like heat. I need to ask you something. My voice was steadier than I expected. Can you make Marcus go away? Permanently. He turned slowly, dark eyes searching my face. Define permanently. I don't need you to kill him. I'm not asking for that. I stepped further into the room, closing the door behind me. But I need him gone in a way that guarantees he never comes back. Legal, financial, whatever else. I need you to use whatever power you have to make him disappear from our lives completely. If I do this, you need to understand what you're asking. Enzo set down his glass with deliberate care. I'll use methods that aren't exactly legal. You'll know what I'm capable of. There's no going back from that knowledge. I already know who you are, Enzo. I moved closer, and something shifted in his expression. I've worked in your home for 3 years. I've seen the men who come and go. I understand what you do. And right now, I don't care about the morality of it. I care about my daughter not having panic attacks because her mother chose wrong again. Keisha. Marcus used to say I was a hypocrite. That I judged him when I married a man with a gun, when Jerome carried violence for his job. My voice didn't shake. But there's a difference between a man who carries power to protect people and a man who uses his fists to hurt them. You're the former. So I'm asking you to protect us the way you know how. The air between us felt electric, dangerous in an entirely different way. I've been falling in love with you since you walked into my kitchen bleeding, Enzo said quietly. I've been fighting it because you're vulnerable, because the timing is wrong. But I can't fight it anymore. I closed the distance between us and kissed him. Claimed him, made it my choice, not his power over me. His hands came up to frame my face. Gentle despite the barely leashed control I could feel trembling through him. Give me 1 week, he whispered against my lips. Marcus Thompson will sign away every right to contact either of you, and he'll leave this state permanently. I promise you that. I believed him. 7 days later, Enzo called me to his office with a folder so thick it could have been a novel. Your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, he began, sliding photos across the desk. She'd been documenting everything for months. Every time you came home with a new injury. I stared at the photos. My face, my arms, evidence of violence I'd tried so hard to hide. Hospital records from 3 different ERs. Witness statements from co-workers. Marcus's prior assault charges, dropped because previous victims were too afraid to testify. He embezzled $38,000 from his employer. Enzo's voice was matter-of-fact. Gambling debts totaling $42,000 to loan sharks who were getting impatient. You bought the debts. It wasn't a question. And presented him with a choice. Sign a permanent no-contact agreement, relinquish any claim to Zuri, accept $8,000 to relocate to another state with all debts forgiven. Or face prosecution for embezzlement and assault, with debt collectors who don't negotiate. Enzo produced more papers, and I saw Marcus's signature, shaky but there. He signed within 30 minutes. He's on a bus to Atlanta right now. My hands trembled as I touched the documents. Did you hurt him? No. Enzo's gaze held mine, unflinching. My men delivered papers and made the consequences clear. He folded because cowards do when confronted with real power. But Keisha, if he'd refused, if he'd fought for access to you or Zuri, I would have made him disappear in ways that don't leave paper trails. I need you to know that about me. I know. I stood, moved around the desk until I was close enough to touch him. And I can live with that. Because you use that power to protect us, not to control us. That's the difference that matters. That evening, Nonna Rosa made a feast. When we told Zuri that Marcus was gone, really gone, permanently, she cried so hard I thought she'd break. But they were tears of relief, not fear. That night, Enzo and I came together for the first time. Tender, careful of my healing ribs, emotionally intense in ways that had nothing to do with physical pleasure and everything to do with trust. With choosing each other. With finally feeling safe enough to be vulnerable. I fell asleep in his arms and didn't dream of violence once. 4 months transformed everything. I ran Enzo's foundation now, helping women escape the kind of hell I'd survived. My MBA courses challenged me in ways that felt empowering rather than overwhelming. Zuri was thriving, therapy working, back in regular school, calling Enzo Dad, with increasing frequency that made his eyes go soft every time. I thought we were safe. The parking garage attack happened so fast I barely processed it. One moment Dante was walking me to the car, the next he was shoving me behind a concrete pillar, weapon drawn. Run, Mrs. Moretti. Now. 3 men materialized from between vehicles, and the first gunshot echoed like thunder in the enclosed space. I ran, fumbling for my phone, Dante's return fire covering my escape. Parking garage foundation, Dante said run. The words tumbled out the second Enzo answered. Stay on the line. Don't stop moving. Backup is 30 seconds out. I heard it in his voice. Controlled panic, barely leashed violence. More gunshots behind me. Then screeching tires, and suddenly Dante's backup team was there, extracting me with professional efficiency while Enzo's voice in my ear talked me through breathing, through not collapsing, through staying conscious. He arrived at the hospital looking like barely controlled chaos, hair disheveled, jacket missing, eyes wild until they found me. His hands shook as they ran over me, checking for injuries, needing the physical confirmation that I was whole. Dante, I asked. Wounded but stable. Keisha, the Calabrese family, they planned this. They knew your schedule, your routine. They were trying to take you to use against me. The reality crashed over me. This was his world. Our world now. I can set you up somewhere safe, Enzo said, voice rough. Different city, new identities, financial support for life. You don't have to stay if being with me means. I'm not leaving you. I grabbed his face, made him look at me. But you need to end this threat. Permanently. Can you do that? Within 48 hours, they'll understand you're completely off limits. His jaw tightened. But I'm also changing how I operate. Reducing involvement in the most dangerous parts. You and Zuri are my priority now. Everything else is negotiable. I kissed him then, in that sterile hospital corridor, choosing him despite everything. Choosing us. 2 weeks after the Calabrese situation was resolved, through methods I didn't ask about and alliances Enzo explained only in broad strokes, I drove to the cemetery alone. Jerome's headstone looked smaller than I remembered. I knelt in the grass, tracing his name with my fingers. Jerome, I met someone. His name is Enzo, and he's nothing like you. You believed in justice through the law. He operates outside it. You died protecting strangers. He kills to protect his own. The words came easier than I expected. But he saved us. When I was broken and bleeding, He gave us shelter. He gave Zuri safety. He loves me in a way that makes me feel seen, not small. I wiped my eyes. I think you'd hate who he is. But I also think you'd understand why I love him. Because at the end of the day, you both believe the same thing, protecting the people you love at any cost. I'll always love you. You gave me Zuri and 7 beautiful years. But I need to move forward now. And I hope, you'd want me to be happy again. When I returned to the estate, Enzo was waiting in the garden, pacing like I'd never seen him do. Nervous. Almost vulnerable. Keisha. He stopped, took a breath, then did something that made my heart stutter. He knelt, Italian tradition and all. You walked into my life bleeding and terrified, and you changed everything. You showed me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about choosing to heal. You taught me that love isn't control. It's choosing someone every day and trusting them to choose you back. His hands were steady even if his voice wasn't. I'm not asking you to forget Jerome. I'm asking you to let me be part of your future. To let me be Zuri's father in every way that matters. To marry me and build a family based on choice, not obligation. Yes, I said. On one condition. We ask Zuri's permission for the adoption. We found her in the kitchen with Nonna Rosa, and when Enzo asked, voice careful and respectful of her agency, she broke down crying. Can I keep Vance too? Like, be Zuri Vance Moretti? Because I love my first dad, but I want you to be my dad too. Enzo pulled her close. That's perfect. You honor where you came from while embracing where you're going. Family. Finally, we were family. 1 year and 2 weeks after that desperate 3 a.m. night, I stood in front of a mirror wearing ivory silk while my mother fastened the clasp at my neck. I was wrong, she said quietly. Wrong to judge you for how you survived. I was scared of losing you to violence like we lost your father. But I pushed you away when you needed me most. I'm sorry, baby girl. I turned and hugged her, careful of the dress, letting forgiveness settle between us. Down the hall, Zuri was getting ready in her deep burgundy gown, her choice, elegant and mature. Nonna Rosa appeared with a delicate gold cross on a chain. My grandmother gave this to me in Sicily, the old woman said, her accented English thick with emotion. Now I give to you. You are Moretti now. This is family. Zuri's eyes filled as Nonna Rosa fastened it around her neck. The garden ceremony blended our worlds, Italian traditions meeting African-American soul, Enzo's organization mingling with my reconciled church community and foundation colleagues. My mother and Nonna Rosa walked me down the aisle together, 2 matriarchs united in blessing what came next. Enzo stood waiting in a midnight blue suit, and when his eyes found mine, I saw everything. The dangerous man who'd protected us, the gentle soul who'd given us space to heal, the partner who'd chosen us when he didn't have to. His vows were simple and devastating. Keisha, you survived what should have broken you. You raised a daughter brave enough to save you. You walked into my home bleeding and terrified, and you left it as the woman I love. I don't complete you. You were always whole. I just get to stand beside you now. My own vows came from the deepest truth I knew. You saw me when I was invisible. You showed Zuri what a real man looks like, someone who uses power to protect, not to harm. I'm not naive about your world. I know the danger. But I choose it anyway because being with you is worth every risk. I choose you, Enzo Moretti. Every day I choose you. At the reception, Zuri gave a speech that had everyone crying. A year ago, I was cleaning dishes at 3 a.m., terrified and alone. Then Enzo found me and asked if I was okay. No adult had asked me that in months. He gave us safety. Then he gave us family. As twilight painted the garden gold, I watched Zuri teach Nana Rosa's great niece how to make pasta, Enzo's arm warm around my waist, and thought, this is what healing looks like. Not erasing the past, but building something beautiful despite it. Enzo Moretti caught my daughter at 3 a.m. and discovered our secret. It destroyed him in the best way possible, breaking down walls and rebuilding them around our family. And in doing so, he gave us something neither of us expected. A home where love means safety, power means protection, and family means choosing each other every single day. But when we reach the end of a journey like Keisha's, we must ask ourselves a question far heavier than any vow spoken beneath warm twilight skies. What do we truly owe to the people who failed us, and to the people who saved us? Marcus believed she was invisible, someone whose pain could be ignored without consequence. Enzo believed she was worth protecting even when it cost him everything. And standing between those two men, Keisha had to decide which voice she would carry into her future, the one that broke her, or the one that helped her heal. And what about you? After witnessing her story unfold from bruises to bridal silk, have you ever found yourself torn between the life that wounded you and the life that chose you? Have you ever hesitated at the threshold of a new beginning because part of you still felt guilty for wanting something better? Tell us honestly. When love finally reached out its hand, were you brave enough to take it? Or did you turn back toward the familiar hurt because change felt too costly? Share your thoughts in the comments. We would be honored to hear how Keisha's journey reflects a piece of your own. If this story touched you, please like the video, share it with someone who may need this reminder, and subscribe for more stories that illuminate the quiet, powerful truths of the human heart. Thank you for staying with us. May your days be gentle, your nights peaceful, and your choices guided by courage. Goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.